Personally, I think this is the most boring part of my job. Hello everyone, welcome back. I've gotten some requests for this video from a lot of you who have DM'd me or commented on my other videos that I make a video of what happens before I go in the booth. Personally, I think this is the most boring part of my job. Just because I'm just trying to get work done, so like I don't know, and it's like a lot of writing, and you know, I don't think watching someone write is all that fun, but you guys wanted to know what I do, so this is that video. And I'm really tired. It's 1:50 a.m. I got here like 30 minutes ago, and I'm still not awake, so yeah. When I first come in, I usually check my email. It's very important that I check our EP's email because in here she has all the segments and the stories reporters are on and our other must runs. That's literally the first thing I do when I get here, is I just check my email. So, you know, very fun stuff. After that, I go to my show. So I have two shows. So this is the 7 and then this is the 8 o'clock. So I don't look at the 8 till later. I usually just try to build the 7 because that one just takes the longest. Okay, so the next thing I do is I put in what the reporters are gonna do for the day, just because I don't like messing with it later and it's done and out of the way. And if I have to make any changes to it, it's usually minor changes, so I usually do that first. Oh, I just did this wrong. Wow, talking and doing this is not easy. What was I thinking? Okay. So today we have 2 reporters. We usually just have one, which is Peyton. But today we have 2. We have Mike Joyce, who's another one of our meteorologists. He is going to be out on the roads. We're supposed to have messy weather this morning for the morning commute. So of course we want to see how bad it is. So we're going to send him out to the roads. So I put in what he's doing and then which live view he's in. So I'm assuming he's gonna be on live view 3, and then, but I could be wrong, which I could change later. It's no big deal. And then we also have a GoPro camera, and then I made a slug line for that, and then we do this cool thing which is like a picture here and then the big picture there, which is called pick and pick, and then that requires 2 live views, so I did live view 3 and 4, so that's what that means. The next thing I do is I make the toss to them. So this is where the anchors are gonna toss to Joyce. So this is where I pick the camera shot and make graphics for it. So here I'm gonna pick an M quad shot, and then up here, so up here, this is where I get my graphics and make all of that. So it's gonna be ice mostly, or let's do roads. This is how you search for like pictures and stuff. So there's nothing I really like. I guess if it was knowing, I could use that. Oh, that's good. Okay. Alright, so we'll do this graphic. So I just grab the picture and grab it in here. This is a monitor loop, so this is what goes behind them, which are the monitors. I changed the graphic channel to B. You guys won't know what that means, and honestly it's super hard to explain. I don't even know how to explain it. And then I search for an additional monitor loop. Let's do... Oh, you can't preview it, but that looks good for whatever this is. Okay, so there goes that. So I just drag it, drop it in there, and then I type in what shot I want and what graphics template I want it in. So 6A. Again, this won't make sense and it takes too long to explain. I'm not going to explain it, but just trust the process is basically what I'm saying. So once I have all of that done, I put the reporter's initials next to it without a little star asterisk thing. This is just to remind me that before I number my show and move on to the 8, that I have this. I look over this and I make sure it's right and that there's a toss to it and all of that. I think I'm gonna give him some extra time today because there is supposed to be stuff happening and he's gonna need time to talk and all of that. So I just did that, and then next I'm gonna do Peyton. Same thing. I don't think there's any video or sound for this, so I'm gonna delete that. If she wants to add something, she'll tell me. Put in time. She's probably gonna be on live view too. Her story is okay. So that's her story. All right. So let's search for. So this one I'm gonna do a little different. I'm gonna do a 2-shot at the desk because I don't think I can find any graphics for her story today. So I write here what shot I want, and then here it is. And then we're gonna make a new slug here. And this is gonna be a double box. I don't like double boxes or to use them usually because the audios don't match up with the anchors and the reporter, so it sounds bad most of the time, so I try to refrain from using them, but you know, there's days like today where you just have to use it. Double box, and then on templates right here, I'm gonna search for a box and then these will come up. I'm gonna do a 2A, and then this will be the studio, and then this will be live. Okay, so to preview what I just wrote or what the graphic I want, I just double click on it, and then if it looks good, I drag it in and boom. And then I just type right here, take double box, which is the director cue. They'll know when to take it, and then I go back here and I put Peyton's initials next to her thing. Again, to remind me that I need to check over this before I number my show and move on to the 8. So, okay, so reporter stuff is in. The next thing I do is I put in my segments. Okay, so another thing that has to run in the 7 are these business headlines. So I'm putting that in here. I usually put it in after Job Squad, but I don't know, it could always change. So that has to run in the 7, and then I pick who's gonna read these stories. I just make sure, again, there's like no spelling errors and the super, everything's good. You always want to double check any other producers out there, or future producers out there. You always want to double check, even if you grab stories from other shows, for any errors. And it's not that the other producer sucks or anything, but sometimes where you're typing really fast, you can misspell things. So, and you know, it happens to the best of us, honestly. It's happened to me. So you always want like another set of eyes on, especially with graphics and stuff, because the anchors don't really look at the graphics. They mostly focus on the script, so scripts are usually fine. So let's do our quad, okay, and then it's a 2B, and then for graphic I'm gonna want a 7-Eleven graphic. Put that, drag that in here, and it's gonna be Nathan. Cool. And then I look for Nathan's super. Paste it there. So this is their name and then their social media handle. It's usually their Twitter handle. And then that's good. Make sure the reads say Elise, and then check the lower third. Okay, so that's good, and once that's good, I just move on to the next thing. So all of my must runs are in except for that one package. After all of my must runs are in, including certain stories and packages and reporters and segments, once I make sure that everything that I have to have in the 7 is in, I can start working on building, actually producing and putting together a segment. The segment that I have, if I had more, I would obviously put more segments together, but yeah, so for that, we're done with that. All right, so one thing I want to mention is that as a producer, you kind of have to find your own workflow, and it will be different from your fellow coworkers. You just have to find what works best for you. Obviously, if you're a new producer, you will get trained one way, but like once you get comfortable and you figure out what works for you, you kind of build your own workflow, right? And then you kind of set deadlines for yourself. So I know that by a certain time I have to be done with certain things and working on other certain things. Especially when you have multiple shows, you kind of have to check in and see where you are, and you can kind of tell by the time if you're gonna be ahead for the day or if you're gonna be behind. I'm usually behind. Hardly am I ever ahead, but yeah. So I just wanted to mention that workflows, it's the way you do things and what you start on and then what you finish and all of that, it will be different from producer to producer. The other morning producer that I work with, we work together, but we don't have similar workflows, and that's okay. Like, whatever helps you get your show done and on the air. And yeah, so that's mostly what I do when I first get here. So after I build my segment, then I will look for the top stories of the day. This is where I usually chat with my coworker and we kind of talk about the big stories for the day. And then I try to figure out how I'm gonna put it in my show, like in the A blocks, especially because those are the most important ones. And then after I put all of my stories in, so all of my stories are written, my segments are produced and done, all of my must runs are in, then I go back and put my teases in. I usually do it for the whole show. And then after that, so we record headlines for the 7 a.m. show. So here they are. It's kind of like a long shot. It's like 45 seconds. So they just record them instead of doing them on air. So after I put all of my teases in, I usually go and find sound bites for that and put it together. And then the anchors will write them. I don't know. They'll write them, and then after that, I'll go and start writing teases, which is honestly the worst part, I think, of putting a show together, especially when you kind of have a news wheel going, because you end up writing the same tease like 7 times, and by like the 3rd time it's already annoying. So that's probably my least favorite part, is working on teases. And yeah, working on teases. After the 7 is completely done, then I move on to the 8. I put my segments in first, and then my must runs, and then my reporters in. And then once I have all of that in place, then I just kind of copy over certain stories from the 7 over to the 8, because like I said, we kind of have a news wheel going, so usually stories repeat. There will be a couple news stories here and there just because the amount of news, like the time that goes in the 7 and goes in what goes in the 8 is different. So there's usually more time in the 8, so I have to add more stories, newer stories. If we're working on a breaking news story, obviously that'll change, but from when it first runs, like let's say in the 6 to when it gets to the 8, we'll probably have more information, or we'll have like a crew there. So that's other stuff I keep in mind. Once I have all of my stories in and my segments produced and my must-runs in and reporters and all of that in the 8, then I go back, put my teases in, write my teases, and then I'm done. After that, I send hit times to the reporters, and then usually by then it's time for me to go in the booth, and obviously you guys have seen what I do in the booth. So yeah, it's not what I do out here before I go in there. It's really not that interesting. It's probably the most boring part, I think, in my opinion, just because it's mostly me trying to find information and then writing stuff and, you know, stuff like that. The only, I guess, kind of fun part is like putting graphics together, which you guys saw. I kind of can have a little fun with that, so that's what I usually have fun with. And yeah, I guess other things that I do out here. So over there, in that desk over there, where you see those little antennas right there, those are the police scanners. So the producers and managers, once they get here, we're all supposed to listen to those and listen for any, like, you know, news, like a shooting or a robbery or a 99 or, you know, anything big like that. Probably one of my biggest flaws as a producer is I'm not very good at that. Like, I can't pick up on what they say most of the time, just because they mumble a lot, and it just listening to police scanners, if you've ever done it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just mostly mumbling. I don't know, for some reason my ear just can't pick it up all that well. So that's one of my biggest flaws as a producer, which I try to work on, but I end up tuning them out most of the time. Yeah, that's all I do before I go in the booth. I showed you guys kind of like how I put my show together. Sorry, I'm not very energetic. I'm really tired, and I just, like, now I won't be fully awake until like 4 or 5 a.m. So I hope you guys liked this video and found it interesting and hopefully not too boring. If you guys have any questions, always feel free to leave a comment or DM me on Instagram or Twitter, whatever you guys want. I'll post my social media handles in the bio description. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.